You ever get that feeling like the universe is trying to whisper something in your ear, but the room's too loud? Everything around you buzzing, scrolling, shouting, and underneath it all, there's this urgency. Not panic, not chaos, something colder, quieter, like a knock on the inside of your ribs. You try to ignore it, of course, numb it, distract yourself with the usual noise likes, timelines, the fake smiles, sugar-coated doom. But it doesn't stop, it just waits. And it's not asking for your attention anymore. It's demanding You wake up, eyes open. But you're not really awake, are you? You're already scrolling, already plugged in, already digesting the static. And somewhere between the flickering screens and the caffeine-fueled routine, you miss it. The voice. Not loud. Not dramatic. Not the booming kind people expect when they imagine God talking. It's subtle. Like a glitch in the rhythm. Like your spirit just flinched. It felt something. And you ignored it because that's what we're taught to do. Numb the signal. Normalize the silence. Dismiss the divine as imagination and call the noise reality. You ever wonder why people are so uncomfortable with stillness? Why we blast music in empty rooms? Why we drown ourselves in distractions? Because silence is where the truth starts to leak through. And the truth, it's not always kind. Sometimes the truth wrecks your illusions. Sometimes it sets fire to everything you built on lies. And people don't want that. They want comfort. But God doesn't call you into comfort. He calls you into clarity, into confrontation, into war with yourself. Now, when I say God needs to talk to you, people get nervous. They picture punishment, judgment. But what if the real danger is not listening? What if the warning isn't fire from the sky, it's the slow rot of your potential? The decay of the parts of you that were meant to lead, to build, to transform, rotting away in the dungeon of delay. Because you were too afraid to pick up the call. Because you thought it would come later. After the job. After the relationship. After the fear goes away. But here's the problem with waiting for fear to leave. It doesn't. It adapts. It gets smarter. It finds new costumes. And while you're busy negotiating with your demons, time keeps moving. And God is still waiting. But not forever. Let's make something clear. This isn't about religion. This is about reality. The kind you feel, even if you can't explain it. That gut pull that shows up at 2 a.m. when everything else fades. That flash of purpose that hits in the middle of doing something you hate. That shiver in your chest when someone says something that accidentally aligns with the thing you've been trying to bury. That's the knock. The call. And it's not asking for permission anymore. It's funny. People will ignore 99 signs but follow one compliment. They'll reject truth if it makes them uncomfortable but embrace lies if it strokes their ego. They want affirmation without transformation. Want God to speak, but only if He says what they already want to hear. But that's not how this works. When He speaks, He doesn't stroke your pride, He shatters it. He doesn't ask, "Are you ready?" He tells you it's time. Not later. Not when you're perfect. Not when you're popular right now. In the middle of your mess. While you still think you're not qualified. Because that's the moment He shows up, not when you're impressive, but when you're real. So why now? Why you? Because something in you won't stay silent anymore. You've been pretending, playing small, hiding behind old stories. But your spirit's been restless. Agitated, not by accident, by design. You're not being punished. You're being summoned. And the things that used to satisfy you, they don't hit the same. The people that used to validate you, they feel foreign now. That's not depression. That's evolution. That's your old self starting to break apart because your real self is starting to emerge. You think you're losing your mind. Maybe. But maybe you're just shedding the version of yourself that was built to survive instead of lead. And that's not a breakdown, it's an awakening. Painful, of course. Clarity always is, but necessary. Because if you keep ignoring the voice, it doesn't stop calling. It just starts calling. Louder through chaos, through loss, through the ache of mediocrity, until eventually the life you settle for becomes so loud you have to listen, or be consumed by. You ever wonder why everything around you feels rigged? Like no matter how hard you try, no matter how deep you breathe or how many books you read, something keeps pulling you back into the same dull rhythm. It's like living in a cage made of clocks and opinions. You wake up, brush your teeth, smile like a puppet, pretend everything's fine, all while your soul is sure screaming into a void that nobody even hears. That's not burnout. That's not laziness. That's the side effect of being called for more while being forced to exist in less. You see, when God starts moving in your life, He doesn't send a letter in the mail. He doesn't knock on your door with a halo and a harp. No. He starts by making the ordinary feel unbearable. Things that used to excite you, they rot in your hands. Conversations that once felt safe suddenly feel fake. The mask gets heavy. The routine becomes suffocating. That's how you know it's starting. The unraveling, the disruption, the holy chaos. Not to destroy you, but to strip away what can't follow you into the next chapter. That ache you carry, that quiet little ache that no one sees but you feel in the back of your throat when you're alone, that's not weakness. That's alignment. That's the tension between who you are and who you're pretending to be. Most people numb that feeling. They call it stress, anxiety, hormones, whatever helps them avoid the truth. But the truth doesn't care if it makes you uncomfortable. It's not here to be liked. It's here to wake you up. Because once you've been marked, chosen, called, whatever you want to call it, you don't get to go back. You don't get to play dumb. You can try. Oh, you will try. You'll chase distractions, relationships, fake goals that look shiny enough to keep you occupied. But somewhere deep in the background, that voice never stops. This isn't it. You were made for more. Why are you pretending to be normal? And it'll haunt you until you finally snap and admit it. You've outgrown the life you're living. But here's the twisted part. They don't warn you about what happens next. The loneliness, the silence, the disconnection. Because the second you say yes to growth, you say goodbye to comfort. You lose people. Not because you became toxic, because you became truthful. And the truth, it's offensive. It's disruptive. It ruins shallow conversations and kills small talk. You start craving depth, realness. You start seeing through people. And they hate that. They liked you better when you were confused, distracted, easy to manipulate. Now, it's not just them you outgrow. You start outgrowing yourself, your habits, your excuses, the stories you've told yourself to stay safe. You look in the mirror and realize the person staring back isn't who you want to be anymore. You start burning bridges, not out of anger, but necessity. You don't have the luxury of dragging dead weight into your destiny. And guess what? That includes your old mindset. Because to walk in purpose, you have to walk in discomfort. You have to kill the version of you that was built to survive and resurrect the one that was born to lead. And that doesn't happen with motivational quotes and vision boards. It happens with fire, with isolation, with that dark, suffocating silence where you think you're being punished, but in reality you're being processed. You're being prepared. You're being stripped of everything fake so only the real can remain. But nobody claps for this part. Nobody posts about the nights you can't sleep because your spirit's too loud, or the mornings you wake up with tears and no reason, or the moments you smile in public while dying in private. This is the wilderness. This is the space between who you were and who you're becoming. And it's messy, ugly, necessary, because it's here in the silence that your ears finally open, not to the world, but to Him, to that voice that was always there, waiting for you to shut up long enough to hear it. It won't scream, it never does. It will whisper, calm, steady, clear. And in that moment, if you're honest, if you're brave, you'll admit it to yourself. You'll say the words out loud. I'm not crazy. I'm being called. You can feel it, can't you? Like an itch beneath your skin that won't go away. No matter how much you achieve, no matter how many people applaud you, no matter how perfectly you play the part, there's this low hum in your chest, always buzzing, always reminding you this isn't it. This isn't all you were made for. You're not insane. You're not ungrateful. You're uncomfortable because your soul knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. You've been taught your whole life to stay in line. Be nice. Don't ruffle feathers. Be realistic. Chase the job, the car, the house. Smile for the camera. Die quietly. But you weren't built for quiet. You weren't designed to be. Baiga. There's a reason you've never been able to sit still in a mediocre life without feeling like you're suffocating. There's a reason comfort never really comforts you. It was never meant to. Because you've been marked. And marked people don't blend in. Oh, they try, believe me, they try. They shrink themselves to fit into relationships that drain them. They stay in rooms where their silence is more welcome than their truth. They dim their brilliance just enough to not make others uncomfortable. And at first it works, for a while, until the pretending becomes more exhausting than the truth. Until you wake up and realize you're choking on your own potential. That's when things start to break. That's when the mask starts slipping. And when it does, you've got two choices: put it back on and keep dying slowly, or let it fall and live. But living, that's not as easy as they make it sound. See, the moment you start honoring your calling, you also start triggering everyone who refuses to honor theirs. You stop being inspirational and start being too much. People will tell you you've changed, that you're arrogant now, that you're acting different. And they're right. You've changed. Because you were supposed to. Growth doesn't ask for permission. It just shows up and starts rearranging everything that isn't real. And people don't like that. They don't like when you stop playing the role they assign to you. When you stop laughing at jokes that don't hit. When you stop entertaining conversations that insult your spirit. When you stop showing up for things that no longer feed your purpose. They call it selfish. They call it cold. But what they don't see is the war you had to fight to even hear your own voice again. The internal battle to admit that you're not just a person, they're not just a name, you're a message. A movement. And movements don't stay quiet. You start seeing the patterns, the cycles, how every time you get close to breakthrough, something or someone tries to pull you back. It's not coincidence. It's resistance. Because darkness doesn't fight darkness. It fights light. So the brighter you become, the more the attacks intensify. Not to stop you, but to distract you. Because if the enemy can't destroy you, he'll settle for delaying you. And what better way to delay you than to make you question yourself? Your timing, your worth, your identity. But that's the trick, isn't it? You keep waiting for clarity, for some kind of sign that you're on the right path. But the truth is, clarity comes after obedience, not before. The miracle isn't in knowing. It's in moving, even when you're scared, even when you're unsure, even when your knees are shaking and your voice cracks. Because purpose isn't handed to you in perfect conditions. It's revealed in motion. One messy, uncomfortable, terrifying step at a time. You're not late. You're not broken. You're just finally starting to listen. And that voice inside you, the one that's been getting louder, the one that doesn't care about logic or approval or convenience, that's not your ego. That's your anointing. That's the part of you that remembers who you were before the world told you who to be. That's the spark trying to become a flame. And that flame, it wasn't meant to warm hands. It was meant to burn down the lies you've been living in. So no, you're not crazy. You're not unstable. You're just waking up. And waking up in a world that profits off your sleep, that's going to feel violent. But that violence, it's not destruction. It's birth. You start to notice it in small ways at first. People flinch when you speak the truth. Not because it's loud, not because it's wrong, but because it cuts through the illusions they've built their entire identity around. You sit in rooms filled with noise, conversations bouncing off walls like ping pong balls, but somehow none of it touches you. You're there physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you're orbiting a different planet. And that disconnect, it's not dysfunction, it's evolution. You're becoming allergic to the fake. They won't tell you this, but authenticity is dangerous. It threatens systems, it breaks routines. It terrifies the ones who've learned to survive by pretending. So when you walk into a room and refuse to play the part, when you let your soul speak instead of your social mask, you become a problem. Not because you're wrong, but because you're real. And realness, true, raw, uncompromising realness, is radioactive to people still clinging to comfort. What they don't understand is that you didn't choose this shift. You didn't wake up one day and decide to alienate yourself. It happened slowly, quietly, like a whisper beneath the noise. You started seeing through smiles, hearing the manipulation hidden in compliments, feeling the emptiness behind titles, applause, attention. You started to realize that success without purpose is just a more expensive form of emptiness, that looking good isn't the same as being whole, and that the more you shrink yourself to fit in, the more you abandon the voice inside you that's begging to rise. So now you walk with a different energy, not arrogant, just aware. You're not mad, you're not bitter, you're just done apologizing for evolving, for growing, for asking deeper questions, for refusing to keep playing small so others don't feel insecure. And the people who once praised you, they start calling you distant, complicated, changed, but they don't see the price you paid for your peace, the battles you fought in silence, the nights you cried in private, the war it took to rebuild your mind from the inside out. Because let's be honest, becoming who you really are is violent, not to others, to the parts of you that had to die. The people pleaser, the perfectionist, the overthinker, the one who believed love had to be earned and truth had to be filtered. And each time one of those parts dies, something sacred is born. Integrity, clarity, courage. Not the kind that screams, the kind that walks into chaos with calm eyes and a steady heart. Knowing it no longer needs to convince, explain, or prove, you begin to walk away from things that drain you, not out of anger, but alignment. You stop fighting for attention and start living in intention. You stop measuring your worth by metrics and start measuring it by meaning. You no longer chase approval like a starving animal because you've tasted the strength that comes from being internally fed. It's quiet, but it's unshakable. And once you touch it, once you feel that stillness in your chest where panic used to live, you can go back. But the world around you, it doesn't change as fast. It still wants the old you. The agreeable one, the predictable one, the one who smiled on cue and said yes to everything even when your soul was screaming. No. They want that version of you back, not because it served you, but because it served them. And when you stop performing, they call it rebellion. They say you're different. Damn right you are. You've met your truth, and now you refuse to pretend you didn't. You stop being the emotional sponge for other people's chaos. You stop explaining your piece to those committed to their drama. You stop giving CPR to relationships that flatlined years ago. You start honoring your time like it's sacred, because it is. You start protecting your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. And slowly, one boundary at a time, one honest conversation at a time, you carve out a space in Etiam. You carve out a space in the world where your soul can actually breathe, where your purpose isn't just tolerated, it's home. And that is what scares them. Not your growth, not your confidence, but the fact that you no longer need them to validate who you are. You ever wonder why your success makes people uncomfortable? Not your loud, shiny moments, but the quiet ones, the subtle shifts when you start carrying yourself them. You step into a room and the air changes, not because you said anything, but because you stopped hiding. That's when the whispers start. That's when they say you're arrogant, you're too much, you've changed. And they're not wrong, you have. You had to. People love the version of you that needs them. They adore the one that doubts, the one that plays safe, the one that doesn't know what they're worth. That version is non-threatening, controllable, predictable. But the moment you wake up to your value, the real kind, not the fake confidence plastered over insecurity, the whole dynamic shifts. You're not more than them. you're not better than them, but you're no longer beneath them, and that they can't handle. Because the minute you become aware of your power, the minute you stop begging for scraps and start owning your space, you stop being entertainment and start being a mirror. And people don't like mirrors, not honest ones, not the kind that reflect their own stagnation. It's easier to mock you, sabotage you, question you than to face their own lack of movement. Your glow becomes a reminder of everything they could be but chose not to become. And you're not even trying to outshine anyone. You're just trying to breathe. You're trying to stretch your legs without shackles. You're trying to speak without flinching, to take up space without guilt. But your liberation to them feels like defiance. It challenges the system of unspoken agreements they built there.